Hi, I'm Don Debelak. You have arrived at the fourth online video in the Before You Spend Big Money series of videos titled Production Information Before Proceeding. Now, most inventors know the product well. They use it professionally or in their own use, or they've come up with the product idea basically because it's something they use and they see a better way to do it. Inventors usually know their markets or have an idea of their markets. They have an idea of the target customer. They have an idea of some of the other parts of the market from visiting shows or talking to sales reps. But when it comes to manufacturing and production, most inventors really don't know anything. So basically what you have to do is really take a crash course and upgrade yourself so you understand production so you don't end up getting with a product that's going to cost too much and you won't make any money. To start with, there's a lot of resources out there for inventors where you can really find out a lot of information that can help guide you into whether or not you should move ahead. One is SCORE. SCORE is an agency or related to the Small Business Administration, and what they are is retired executives, and many of them are manufacturing people. Find your local SCORE. They're all over the country. Go in and meet with them and see if they have somebody who can help you. The Thomas Register is something every person in marketing and product development uses. It's a listing of all the companies in the country, what their production process is, how they make products, and what kind of capabilities they have. They also give, the websites where you can contact the companies and find out more information. Your local inventors clubs. Now, a lot of people ignore those, but these are usually product development people. I'd say about 50% people who have workshops in their basements, people who have workshops in their garages, people who know how to make prototypes and how to do engineering and how to make their product. You go to those clubs, you present your information. A lot of these fellows are retired and they might be willing to help you really get a prototype or at least a model, a working model, so you can really do some testing. State manufacturing directories are also important. Every state I know of has a directory. It lists the manufacturers in the directory. It kind of tells you how big the company is. It gives you information about key contacts. And that, along with the Thomas Register, a deadly 1-2 punch for you really to find out who in your area can really make your product. Another group sponsored by the Small Business Administration is your local Small Business Development Center. Again, this is free services. You should find your local group, go down and have a meeting with them and see if they can offer you any services. I've already talked to you about potential vendors and engineering partners. I've already talked to you about networking and what you can do to meet people who are sales reps, distributors, inventors with their own companies or marketers of small companies. Now, none of these people are really going to be that helpful when it comes to production, or for the most part, they won't be. You've really got to find this out for yourself. So number one is you've got to determine what kind of help you need. Do you need to have a product designer or an engineer? Do you need to have a manufacturer who makes a prototype? Or are these things you can do yourself? Or have you already met some inventors and other things that can help you? Two, you've got to make a list of the people on who you think can help you, the manufacturers, designers, engineers that are in your state or local or at the Inventors Club. You should also consider looking at all the freelance sites for designers and engineers. These sites will usually let you post your job and give a maximum that you're willing to pay, and you can find somebody who might be willing to do the work for you. You want to check your manufacturers first because they usually have engineers, they usually have designers, they usually have prototype capabilities, and maybe they'll fill in for you and do all this in return for a percentage of your business or a guarantee that you'll do your manufacturing. Whatever you do, don't hire a prototype maker, engineer, designer without contacting your local inventors company. You've got to see if you can find people you partner with without paying a lot of money. Now, I mentioned earlier, find your potential manufacturing partners first. One is, of course, they can actually sometimes do all the work for you and you don't have to run around and find a designer, engineer, or prototype maker. But they're great investor partners too. The thing to remember about a manufacturer is that if they have 50% production, they're losing their shirts. If they have 70% production, maybe of their plant in production, they might be breaking even. But if they have 85% of their plant in production, it's like they have a printing press where they're just printing money. So the manufacturers have a tremendous incentive to try to add more production to their facility. And they're willing to invest to do that. They either have to develop their own products, which is risky. They have to try to get contract manufacturing, and that business is, first of all, is low margin, and on the second point, it can be transferred out of their facility at any time, or they can work with an inventor and maybe provide work, partner with them in return for the inventor agreeing to manufacture their product with them. So I talked the last session was about the short-term investor package. Well, you want that package because you want to convince that manufacturer you know what you're doing, and you have a good chance of success, and that they want to jump on board with you and see if you can't work together to get that plant capacity up. Now, a lot of inventors are always saying, oh, I got to run overseas, and they want to run overseas because the manufacturing costs can be lower overseas, and that's true. Your final production costs can be quite a bit lower overseas. But right now, when you're beginning the process, you are worried about upfront help. You're worried about having enough cash to actually get that first product made, and made in a reasonable volume so you can do test marketing and really prove the product will sell. So when you're looking at your initial manufacturing partners, look at who's giving you upfront help to get the right product to the market at the right time, and don't worry if you could go overseas and get a much lower production cost, because that much lower production cost also means you're going to have to put up all that upfront capital, which you may or may not have. Again, if you're going to have a design prototype engineer, I already talked a little bit about this. Check with your Inventors Club. Ask your manufacturers. You have SCORE. Don't overlook the freelance publications. And everyone you deal with, everyone you get a quote, don't accept $75 an hour, $125 an hour, $200 an hour. Get a fixed rate for what you want done. If they won't give you a fixed rate, don't deal with the company, because more than likely you're going to end up just a bottomless pit where you're a cash cow to that company. Now, when you're looking at everything, remember that packaging is a part of the product design, and packaging can be a significant cost. Some products, especially lower priced products, have packaging being 20 to 25% of their cost. Again, the freelancers or sites for product packaging are all over the internet, and it's a good place to start. I also like to consider getting a packaging prototype early, even to have one when I make my investor presentation. The package really sells your product pretty well. If you have a really good package that really highlights the product advantages and is really appealing, that's going to help your investor package a great deal. So you don't really have a big investment in a product package. It's usually a design on a box that a graphic artist does or a packaging designer does. And when you're considering the packaging costs in your final product, don't just look at the retail packages, but look at the boxes for the retail packages. These can also be expensive, especially if you have a product where they put 4 in one box and then they put 4 of those boxes in another box. You know, you could be looking at 5 to 10% more cost to your product, and you need to know this, what these costs will be. Another cost you're going to try to get for your product before you get started, so you kind of have a sense of what help you need from engineers and things like that, is tooling, first production runs, and cash flow till collection, which is usually just called cash flow. These costs can be very high depending on your product. This is one of the reasons you want to manufacture as a partner, because all of these costs are really something he's paying all the time and he knows all about, and if he's really going to get on board with your product, he's probably going to be willing to pick them up. A lot of times people have a question about prototype tooling and production tooling, so they'll get a saying the prototype tooling is like $3,500 and the production tooling is $15,000, and the prototype mold maybe only makes 1 part, and your $15,000 mold can make 8 parts. And so they jump right ahead to the $15,000 because it sounds like a better deal. But the fact is, you should always start with prototype. tooling. You don't know how long it lasts, and it might not last long, but the fact is you get your product, you take it out, you do durability tests, you do market testing on its features, and more often than not, you're going to find some things you need to change on that, and it's better to just have to change it after you spend $3,000 or $3,500 instead of $15,000. You've always got to worry about minimum production runs. Some companies were going to require you to make 5,000 or 10,000. They won't turn on their equipment for others. Other companies are willing to start for maybe 500 units. You want that production run as low as possible so that you have a chance to just go out, market test, establish a beachhead, prove your product will sell. You always want to be checking yourself before you spend too much money. You're also going to have to worry about a production time, and that is, so I get an order, I give it to the plant, or I give an order for the plant for so much inventory. How long will it take them to make it? When will they have to purchase the inventory? When can I sell the product, and when can I collect? All of this goes into your cash flow. So you really have pretty significant investment. So then you have to add up all these costs. Now, you've got your investor package, you've already got stuff. You got to see, though, what are these costs? How does it fit into what I can do? And then how am I going to get around those costs if I don't really have enough money or can't get enough investors? So you have the designers, packaging, prototype, tooling, prototype packaging. You also have permanent tooling, small production runs, large production run, cash flow requirements. There's a lot of things you need to worry about. Once you get all those costs down, and then you have an upfront cost. Now the upfront cost is very important for what your market size is. So if I have an upfront cost of, let's say, $70,000, what am I going to do in order to get that production out into the field? How am I going to get it? How big is the market going to be? If I can only make 30 or 40,000 a year, it's not worthwhile to spend $70,000. I think you have to be at least 4 to 5 times higher yearly potential for what you're willing to spend. So if you're going to spend $200,000 on all this upfront cost, you better be able to make $1 million per year off your product in like year 2 or year 3. None of this 18-month payback for your investments. You need a much bigger return if you're an inventor, because your investors are going to want that. You also got to worry about your retail price and your cost for a large production run. So we talked earlier about you need a retail price 4 to 5 times your production cost. Now, the reason for that is the distributor discounts, sales, marketing expenses, administrative costs all mean that if you don't have this kind of a markup, usually I like 5 times, but 4 times will work, you're just not going to make money. So what you want to do is take a look at what is my production cost and what is my retail price that we determined earlier in the marketing information before started video series. What we have to look at now is, do I have enough margin? So now if I have a cost of $3 and my suggested retail is $9.99, and this is my early production, where I'm just establishing a product beachhead and I'm using prototype tools, that's only a 3 to 1 markup, but I would accept that because usually the price of your early production will come down anywhere from 30 to 50% as you move to a larger production run. But if I'm sitting at $3 and my suggested retail is like $4.50, I'm going to say, well, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to make money. I better find another idea. Inventors have to be very careful, and this is really why this whole series is set up, to be willing to let go of their idea when it just doesn't seem like it's going to work. And if you go and pursue and try to make a product work where the production costs are just too high for the retail price you can get, you're just going to lose all your money, you're not going to get ahead, and it's not going to work out. Instead, look at this as a learning experience. You know a lot more. Now all of a sudden you know how to look for ideas that will sell. You know how to look for ideas that you can see in the marketplace are needed, and just go and find another idea that you can pursue. Once you've gone through the invention process once or twice, you'll find invention opportunities all over the place. Now, I'm just saying not to panic here. I know this sounds pretty bad so far. All these costs, all these productions, all these things to worry about to get out. Okay, the thing is, most products don't really need all this, especially if you decide to take an option besides trying to introduce the product yourself. You can license your product, you can private label your product, you can do a joint venture, you can align yourself with manufacturers and distributors, and you have a whole slew of options that we'll be talking about later on in some of the other series. But the point is, you know, if the money is high, that you're going to have to pursue those options, which is another reason you should be going to the trade shows to meet people who can help you to do that. The you know, directing and introducing your product on your own is very difficult, and there's a lot of cost. And unless you have a lot of investor helps or a manufacturer, you're going to find that some of the other routes into the market are easier to do, less risk for you, and you don't really have to have nearly as many skills. Here are some of the key lessons that you want to know. Focus on making a case that your product will sell. Most inventors are totally focused on their product and how much it's needed, but that's not so much important. The question is, how will you sell the product? Can it sell if the market is right and the margins are there? You're going to need helpers. You need production helpers. You need market helpers. You need industry insiders. Now, you can go alone, and there are people who go alone who make it. But I'm telling you that most inventors who finally get up and go to a show, and even if they go to a show with a booth, they make so many contacts, they learn so much information about the market that they are so far ahead they really have a chance to success. So this is not a business where you're the Lone Ranger, but you're a Lone Ranger who needs a lot of Tontos. The markets almost always dictate what the product will be like. Find out what the market wants first. This is what's important for you. Know what the market wants and deliver the product to them. Now, the good news, everything I've talked about so far, gathering marketing information, getting in a lot of contacts by attending a show, meeting sales reps, going to inventors clubs, talking to SCORE, collecting manufacturing information, going to see manufacturers, all of this is very, very inexpensive. The only really significant cost you have is going to a show and also getting a provisional patent so that you can show your idea to people. So that's about a $2,500 investment normally. And if you drive to the show, it can even be less. So that's it. That's all you spend to really flush out your idea, see if the market's ready, see if you can line up investors, and see if you're ready to go. Don't be foolish and go out and spend $30,000 or $40,000 and then backtrack and try to find out information. That's just a good way to lose your money. Remember, the invention business is a long odds. It's maybe only, definitely less than 10% of inventors end up making money, but there are inventors who make money all the time. Now, one of the things I want to just reinforce one more time is our invention stories. There are companies on there that are over 50 to 100 million that are making $5-10 million a year and are very successful. Read their stories and see how they went through and navigated this maze. They didn't just have it fall into their laps. They did all the kind of work that I'm talking about, really getting ready to market, knowing the market, and moving ahead from there.